Hey, it's your boy Sean here with the Polite Company Network, where we never talk about politics or religion. It's Cinco de Cuatro, so enjoy your ice cream sandwiches and destroy as many piñatas as you can. And I love you guys. So, today, we're going to talk about a concept that's going through a few states, Nebraska, Louisiana, Texas, maybe Montana. A few GOP state parties are looking at adding language into their platform saying that they need to take a stand on something. Now, what this means is that it's not going through the state houses. It's not going as an executive order through a governor. It's basically saying, hey, as a party, we need to address this issue. It has no thrust in policy or anything like that, but it is important. So what am I talking about? Talking about no-fault divorce. So no-fault divorce is something that's popped up in American jurisprudence about 60 years ago. Basically, it's saying that when you're in a marriage, you no longer have to prove abuse, prove infidelity. You don't have to show cause for why you want to get out of the contract. You can just say, I'm done, I want to move on. We have irreconcilable differences, that concept. What's really bothering me is that I'm on a few very conservative boards, and a lot of conservatives just don't have it in them to say no to this. You have a lot of minarchists who are like, hey, the government needs to stay out of marriage. Well, the problem with that is it's never been that way. It's not practical. There are civil implications to a marriage, not just children, but assets and everything else. So even in a biblical sense, it's never been just purely ecclesiastical. There's always been a civil aspect to a marriage, and I wish people understood that. Now, the second issue is a lot of conservatives, and I talk to lawyers who are on the site as well, and they see it as, hey, it's just a lot cleaner. It's more pragmatic than going through a lengthy divorce, in the courts where you have he said, she said, women lying about abuse. That's one. Or, hey, you spent time late one day at work. How do you know you weren't, with your secretary? You air out a lot of bad allegations and nonsense, and it's just cleaner to say no. Let's just have a clean split. We're not going to get involved in all this dirty laundry. We're not going to prove people in flagrante, all that stuff, which is unfortunate because that means that the movie Liar Liar never gets made. Funny movie, watch it, enjoy it, it's funny, haha. Jim Carrey's a bit of a kook in real life, but maybe you can get a copy of it secondhand so you're not actually giving him money. Yeah, I'm that kind of guy. So what's really frustrating for me is that you have people who are professing Christians who just say, how God deals with marriage and divorce doesn't really have any bearing on how we ought to address it here in America. And the problem with that, and you're going to hear this a lot from the theonomists that you might follow, or from me because I hold this. What exactly makes you a Christian? By what standard makes you a Christian? A lot of people point to the five solas, and they say, by faith alone. Yes, but prior to that, there's an architectonic concept in the Bible called covenants. And the promise of the new covenant, which Gentiles like myself get to enjoy, is the promise that I will be God's people, and God's people will have the law of God written on our hearts. Now, this doesn't mean that by the law we are saved. Paul addresses that throughout his epistles, specifically Galatians. It's not by works you are saved. All of your works, all of your lineage, it's all rubbish. It's not part of your salvation. But the promise of the new covenant is that the law of God is written on your hearts, and you obey it out of love, and you respect it out of love. You don't think that by obedience you're earning God's favor. That would be incorrect. That would be a works-based righteousness, which is a lie. However, because you are redeemed, you live by those laws as your guiding light. This is how you operate. I don't kill people because it's God's law. You can't say, hey, I'm a Christian. I don't have to not kill people. I can do it. It's perfectly acceptable. Hey, I'm a Christian. I can have idols. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 you can't. And so God's law is still God's law. His people do not approach it as a burden as they did under the old covenants, but they see it as a beautiful way of living that God gives us to grant us freedom. Yes, law is freedom. Even in America, that is the standard. Laws create order, and order allows you to live freely in a free society. I mean, this is very rudimentary understanding of our federal framework. You can go back to John Locke and even further back into Samuel Rutherford. These are the concepts of the civil government, that law is actually freeing. Transgressors do occur, but that's a whole other story. So the issue that I'm having is that I'm looking around and I'm seeing supposedly Christian conservatives, and I can see obviously atheist conservatives saying, we don't want God's law when it comes to marriage, a covenant that God takes very serious. In fact, I would say God cares about your marriage covenant more than he cares about your church covenant, to be quite honest, because you actually see Paul use the language of marriage to describe Christ's relationship with his church. That relationship between you and your wife is the second most important relationship that you can have in this life, other than that with Christ himself. So don't take marriage lightly. But the problem is we're at this point, like the book of Judges, where there is no king in Israel and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. This is where we are in America. In America, we have, at our founding, we believe in self-governance, where we can govern ourselves rightly. Now, at the time, you had thinkers saying, okay, well, we do that in a biblical framework where we can get that general equity, and we have the consent of the masses. We have mutual majorities and stuff like this to help give us those checks and balances on what we can and can't do. But it was always understood that these were Christian values enabling statutory law, rather than just having edicts from, say, the crown 3,000 miles away. And again, that goes back to Rutherford's issue of who has true authority over man. Is it the crown? Is it the church? Is it something else? Is it the magistrates? So I suggest you read Lex Rex, because it's very it puts our War of Independence a little bit more into focus. And in fact, you do have some letters circulating in England where the king gets, he calls it the Calvinist revolt or the Presbyterian revolt, referring to the war in the colonies. But anyways, so what I'm seeing is I'm surveying the land here, and I'm seeing that conservatives, Christians, Southern Baptists, people who ought to want God's law, and in certain aspects they want God's law, just as long as it's politically practical and pragmatic. So thou shalt not kill. We'll keep that one on the books, and, for now. But it feels like the Twin Towers when Aragon is meeting with the King of Rohan, and it's our list of allies grows thin, and I'm starting to see that the wheat and the tares. For the life of me, I never thought that there would be so little wheat, and I know that sounds very judgmental, but if you don't respect God's law in the civil society, chances are you don't respect it in your ecclesiastical covenant, and a lot of churches don't. Let's just be clear. And that means that you don't really hold it in your personal life either. So in all three aspects of your life, whether it be your familial covenant, your church covenant, and your national or political covenant, uh, God's law is not something that is respected and loved and cherished and is engaged in those covenants. And so by what standard do you call yourself a Christian? If you can't say that the new covenant, the thing that is supposed to define you as a Christian, is having that law written on your heart as something that you understand and you love and you want it implemented in your church, in your family, and in your society. So I don't want to sound like too much of a downer. There's two ways to approach this. There's one, let's go run off into the mountains and just wait for the destruction. I don't hold that. I think it takes the second route. And the second route is first educating people on what it means to be Christian by explaining them the covenants. And then secondly, you have just recognizing that, yeah, there's a lot of people out there, even ideologically tangential to you, that are very close, that need correction so that we can build a better society with God's law. And that's all we got today. Bye.